Can I just remind members and officers that this meeting will be live streamed? Leo, you switched on the doobly-doo. Thank you very much. So we'll kick off with item number 1, which is apologies for absence, please.
We've received apologies from absence from Councillor Elmer, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, urgent items. I haven't been given any notification of those. Item number 3 is declarations of interest. Can I ask my colleagues? No. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 4, which is minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 24th of November. Cabinet, are you happy to approve those minutes as a true and accurate record? Yes. Yep. Thank you very much. So we're right into the main meat already. Page 17 of your papers, budget, medium-term financial position and reserves updates. Richard, would you like to kick off?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The detailed figures, the technical analysis and the specific recommendations within the report will be addressed by Rodney. Rodney will guide members through the financial projections, the reserve strategy, and what else we got, and the medium-term financial planning. But before that, I just want to say, by way of introduction, a little bit about the main themes and the context of this report. Because this year, South Norfolk Council approaches the budget setting with a new level of certainty. For the first time in at least a decade, we have a multi-year financial settlement from central government. It's a bit like finally receiving the full itinerary when you're going on a journey, rather than just getting the next stop. But it allows us to plan ahead with greater confidence and stability. However, with the certainty, which is of course welcome, it comes with some significant challenges. The new fair funding assessment changes how government support is distributed. It directs more funding to areas with higher deprivation. And for South Norfolk, this means a few things. Not good. A notable reduction in our core government grant, the loss of the new homes bonus, and a reset of business rates that removes the benefits we've built up through local growth and pooling arrangements. The loss of new homes bonus is particularly disappointing. South Norfolk has consistently delivered new homes and supported growth, responding to both national policies and priorities and local needs. The removal of this incentive not only reduces our income, but also signals a shift away from rewarding councils that have worked hard to deliver growth. Similarly, the business rates reset eliminates the gains we have achieved through careful economic development and collaboration. The new system feels to me a little bit like a reward for success, less like a reward for success, more like a recalibration, with past achievements set aside and future incentives being less clear. Councils that have supported growth areas may feel that their efforts are no longer being fully recognised. Additionally, funding for new statutory services, such as food waste collection, is now included within the general settlement with no additional new burdens grant. This means the full cost of these services must be met locally, further stretching our resources. So while this multi-year settlement gives us a clearer map for the road ahead, it also locks in a flat cash allocation for the next few years. With inflation and rising costs, this represents a real terms reduction in funding, even if council tax is increased by the maximum allowed. The council will need to find ongoing savings and continue to manage its finances with care. But despite these challenges, South Norfolk Council starts from a position of relative strength. Years of sound financial management, robust reserves, and a clear focus on strategic priorities have given us a stable foundation. Our commitment to responsible stewardship will be essential as we navigate this more difficult funding environment, ensuring we continue to protect essential services and invest in the district's future. And now a key part of that resilience lies in the strategic use of our reserves, something which is set out within this report. With over £59 million in usable reserves as of March 2025, we do have the flexibility to support priority projects, to manage financial risks, and invest in the district's long-term needs. Our approach is, of course, not to simply hold reserves for their own sake, but to deploy them thoughtfully, supporting community investment, funding capital programs, and ensuring we can respond to unforeseen challenges. This careful, planned use of reserves is central to maintaining our strong financial position and our ability to withstand future financial shocks. The financial resilience we've built is not an accident. It's the result of careful planning and disciplined stewardship, and it will be our greatest asset as we face the future. So in summary, while we finally have a clearer map for the journey ahead, the reality is stark. South Norfolk is being asked to deliver more with less, and the rewards for years of responsible growth and sound management are being stripped away. The loss of key incentives and the reset of business rates mean that our ability to invest in our communities is directly under threat. And this is not just a technical adjustment, it's a fundamental shift in how councils like ours are valued and supported. Yet thanks to our history of prudent financial management and robust reserves, South Norfolk is better placed than most to withstand these financial shocks. Our strong foundations mean we can continue to navigate uncertainty and protect the interests of our residents, even as the external environment becomes ever more challenging. Perhaps now Rodney could take us through the detail of the report.
Thank you very much. I think just a couple of points just like to add. First of all, it's probably worth saying that normally we bring this type of report in November time. This year it's been slightly delayed because we wanted to wait to see the outcome of the settlement before bringing it to this meeting, because we knew there was going to be significant changes. And as Councillor Elliott has said, this has been the most fundamental change to how local authorities have been funded for probably a decade, and it has had a negative impact on this council. Specifically, I'd like to draw your attention to the table at 1.4, which is very much the key figures that the government have published in their provisional finance settlement. And that's where you can clearly see, as Councillor Elliott said, actually our core spending power, our business rates income, our central government grants, and our ability to raise money from council tax is going to be flat for the next 3 years. So basically it's sitting at 23 million for the next 3 years. So as Councillor Elliott said, that means we've got no allowance for inflation, so we'll have to make sure that actually we can deliver savings to make sure we can set a balanced budget. I'd also just like to quote you what they've called the 25-26 restated core spending power indicator. As in, you can see how it's compared to the current year to what they're saying for 26-27. And on an equivalent basis for 25-26, we'd have got 23.9 million. So actually for 26-27, we're actually seeing an £800,000 cut in the equivalent amount of money that we're getting. And again, that's the figure that government is quoting. So they are very much cutting us for 26-27 and then flat for the next 2 years. But as Councillor Elliott says, we are in a good financial position to be able to weather that, and table 1.6 gives an updated medium-term financial plan, so you can see how actually we're going to hopefully be able to manage this over the next few years. Other thing from the settlement worth pointing that the government has announced that actually the council tax referendum levels are going to stay at 3% or £5. So again, we have no flexibility to actually change our council tax level above that to cope with this reduction, unless of course we went out for a referendum to the residents of this parish. That was all I was going to say on the medium-term financial strategy and the provision figures. But within this report, we've also got a section on CAF funding. This year, actually, we've had a significant increase in the number of bids being received for CAF funding, and there are a number of projects that actually weren't able to be funded from the initial funding that was allocated to CAF. So this report brings to Cabinet for consideration whether or not you'd like to increase the amount of money available in CAF this year by £150,000 by using some of the in-year underspend that is available to do that. Section 3 of the report then very much sets out some suggestions of what you might want to do with our usable reserves. As Councillor Elliott said, we are in a healthy starting position with about £59 million of reserves, but I suggested we do want to make some changes to the reserves and how these are allocated, and these are very much set out in paragraph 3.7 onwards. Firstly, relating to the collaboration savings reserve, there are no plans at present to spend this money, so it's suggested that this is actually reallocated £250,000 towards, I think, a priority to look at a local development order for the Hethel area. And then it's suggested that actually the remaining balance could be moved into the devolution and LGR reserve, because we do know that actually over the next 2 years we are going to have to spend some money moving ahead, and this would be a start towards setting aside some money towards that. I don't think £518,000 is going to be the end of it. Actually, there's going to be probably a significant call, but actually this is a start of the direction of travel for this. The second suggestion regarding projects is the projects reserve, where it's suggesting with some of the projects of underspent in the past that we could reallocate this money to carry out your requirement and request to make sure that the flood prevention officer is employed to at least until March 2028. So again, that's a reallocation of the reserves. And thirdly, it's a suggestion that actually we've got a number of capital projects reserves, as they're listed in the report on 3.15, and actually we could just bring these all together to make our overall financial position more understandable, so you can understand exactly what resources we've got available to fund the capital programme, which will make it easier going forward to actually understand how we're funding our overall capital programme. So it's not actually changing what we're doing as reserves, it's just amalgamating to make it clearer what our overall financial position is. And that was all I was going to say on the report. Or any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Kim?
Thank you, Rodney. That was a really helpful overview, and Richard as well. I just wanted to go into the item 2 in the report on the Community Action Fund funding. So I'm obviously chairman of the panel that hears the grant applications, and the 31 bids received, only 19 were funded this time. So we were oversubscribed by 182 grand in August of this year. Are the officers sort of ready and prepared to launch the next round? Because obviously the financial year is coming quickly, so councillors can be prepared to start sending in their applications. Nicola?
Yes, we're all ready. So subject to the funding being approved today, then we'll be looking to send out communication to all members and be arranging a grant panel in March so we can allocate the funding.
Yeah, one thing I would just add to that is if members are submitting bids, they need to be ready to go, and we need to get them in, because obviously it's a very short space of time between now and when you actually see it. So if members are considering submitting to the CAF fund, can we please make sure that they are fully ready to go? Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. I really just, not a question, but a comment really. I just was going to raise the £250,000 which will go into the Economic Growth Reserve, and as Rodney said, will be used for an LDO at Hethel. I just wanted to say this council have been very successful using LDOs on numerous locations and sites. We've got one coming up later in the agenda, so I'm pleased to see that we are going to have some funding put aside to do this at the Hethel site. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, and also this funding will pay for the post of the ditch walker, post 2. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, which is a very, very popular post.
Yeah, and used by many ward members out in various wards. Thank you.
Councils as well.
Parish councils as well, yeah, and town council.
Trevor?
Chairman, thank you. Just a couple of questions with regards to the recommendations, if that's okay. In terms of recommendation 3, the last line, to merge number of reserves into capital funding earmarked reserves, I wonder, Rodney, if it's worth adding as per paragraph 3.16 of this report, so that it's crystal clear in terms of which funding is being addressed. And actually, if you refer to paragraph 3.11, I wonder if that needs to come forward as a recommendation, the change in delegations, whether that needs to be reflected in the recommendations. So that's with regards to spending in LGR reserve, it's proposed a change in delegation to section 151 officer in consultation with the leader. I suspect that probably should be in the recommendations. Chairman, thank you.
Richard, yep. You happy with that? Okay. Any questions from out there, Jim?
A degree of bemusement over the proposal to do an LGO at Hethel. And I suppose two questions: which area of land are we talking about? And secondly, linked to that, is it the area of land which currently already has outline planning permission for a development for Lotus?
Thank you. The area of land, I'm not aware sort of how to describe it to you. I think it's the whole site we will look at to see where we may benefit from having an LDO on it. You've got, obviously with Lotus, there's been some changes there. So it's just something that we will have to try and encourage businesses to go to that site. It might be something that either George or Phil, you can elaborate with that.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor O'Neill is absolutely right. At this point in time, one of the first steps of the LDO is defining where the extent of that LDO will be. So is at this point in time undetermined where that boundary will be. It is likely to include the allocation for the employment site, because you want to try to bring that forward. That is only an allocation, and we'd need to know the details and try to streamline that process. But it may also include some of the Lotus site. But at this point in time, it will be defined in due course as one of the first steps of the LDO.
I would have thought before the Cabinet allocates money to develop an LDO, it ought to have an understanding of which area is being talked about. Now, if you're preemptively trying to think of alternative uses for the Lotus site on the basis that their plans won't come to fruition and there is a risk that production there terminates, I could understand that. But I think there ought to be clarity about what's being done and indeed what the benefits to South Norfolk would be from doing this. It seems particularly speculative.
Phil, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Forgive me. I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think it is speculative. There are clear plans. There are clear allocations that have gone through a democratic plan-making process, and therefore there is a clear understanding of what we want for that site. This is not, and I'd absolutely repeat and underline the word "not." This is not in response to a fear that Lotus is suddenly going to walk away from the site. We are doing everything we can as a local authority, along with government, along with others, to make sure that Lotus can continue there and can continue to thrive. And this will be about providing the supporting infrastructure, the supporting pipeline of businesses in that area to enable that place to thrive.
I'm not entirely satisfied, but it's best I pick up with Phil and actually try and understand better which areas of land we're talking about.
That's what I was going to.
Because it was not at all clear from this proposal.
Yep, if you pick it up with Phil afterwards, that'll be fine. Right, any other comments, questions? Right, in that case, we'll move to the recommendations, which are on page 25 of your agendas. The first one is Cabinet to endorse the latest version of the medium-term financial projections. Everybody happy with that? Okay, thank you. Second one, Cabinet to agree additional increase of the CAF fund for 2026 of 150,000 by allocating some of the in-year additional investment income. Everybody agree with that? Thank you very much. And then number 3, Is we're going to also include in that list with regards to spending the money in the LGR reserve. It's proposed to change the delegation up to section 151.
Chairman, if I could help
Yeah.
with that, I suggest that there's a new recommendation added at the bottom,
You want to put a new?
which reads delegation to the section 151 officer in consultation with the leader, authority to spend funding from the LGR reserve as an additional recommendation to make that explicitly clear.
Yeah. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah. Okay, and then we'll just go back to 3, which is the recommendations there, with also the other recommendation from the managing director that we put the list in from the other section as well.
Chair, to be clear, that's to add on the final line as per paragraph 3.116 of this report.
Yeah. Thank you. Everybody happy with that? Right. Thank you very much. So we'll next move on to item number 6, which is the regulation of investigatory powers Act 2000. I know I was going to mess that up. Use of RIPA Annual Report 25-26, Joint Policy Review and Update. And this is over to Martin.
Thank you, Chair. A bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Often referred to as RIPA. The Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act of 2000 provides a legal framework for the use of covert surveillance and the acquisition of communications data by public authorities, and that includes us. This report before you today outlines South Norfolk Council's use of RIPA during 2025 and confirms the Council's commitment to ensure that any use of investigatory powers is lawful, necessary and proportionate. It is worth mentioning out there is significant independent oversight of RIPA in respect of the way in which covert activities are used, and this is provided by the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office, and we have been subjected to one of these inspections before, and it's more than likely that we will be inspected again in the future. To outline further policy, Louise? Is it Louise? Or are you, Terry?
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah,
Thank you,
okay,
Chair.
Louise.
And to avoid any mispronunciation, I'm going to use RIPA.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so this report presents for consideration and adoption a reviewed and revised RIPA policy and also presents a summary of the usage of RIPA throughout 2025 across the district. So the council already has a RIPA policy, which was last reviewed in 2023. This policy has just been updated and reviewed in line with the changes in legislation and reviewed codes of practice in June last year. So the key points to note really, it's important to have a RIPA policy because it provides a legal framework for public authorities, including local authorities, to make sure that surveillance, including covert surveillance, is carried out in a lawful and consistent and proportionate manner. It also covers communication data, so collection of communication data. So when officers are searching, doing internet searches, or just finding out further information with regards to benefit information, that sort of information, then it's important that we do it in a lawful and consistent manner. Okay. So to give you an idea of what examples of where we've used RIPA across the council, so for directed surveillance in terms of fly tipping, where we've identified hotspots across the district, we will arrange for directed surveillance in a particular area to monitor the situation. And also we use covert human intelligence sources, or CHISs, where undercover officers go out and search information about individuals or businesses. Covert surveillance is where we're going out and searching for information without their prior knowledge, so it's undercover. So the importance, why do we need a RIPA policy? As I said, it ensures compliance with the legislation and Human Rights Act. It demonstrates that the council takes RIPA seriously and are committed to lawful and proportionate and transparent use of regulatory powers. It makes clear to stakeholders how the council will exercise its responsibilities, and it ensures that the council has appropriately authorised and trained officers, and provides for a robust defence against any challenges. The authorisation process only comes in for crimes that meet the serious crime threshold. So those are crimes where the punishment is a minimum of 6 months imprisonment. Other than that, RIPA, we don't authorise, we don't have to go to the courts for authorisation for RIPA, but we do have internal processes which ensure that we carry out the surveillance in a consistent and proportionate way. The report also presents the usage of RIPA in 2025 across South Norfolk, and it was only used on the one occasion in January 2025 for Operation Snake, which related to a fly tipping investigation. Okay, the report also details the training and preparedness that we give to officers, and it makes 2 recommendations. One, to note the report and provide any comments, and secondly, to adopt the revised joint RIPA policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Martin, anything else to add?
No, I think Louise has outlined it perfectly well there.
Good. Okay, in that case, questions from Cabinet?
Comment, I just suggest very well laid out report, very clear, an updated policy which we should support.
Yeah, fine. Any questions? Anybody else? Jim? No, you that one.
We live in a society which has some of the highest levels of surveillance in the Western world, and it is quite concerning at times. It's good to see that we're training our officers. I've got 2 questions related to that. How often do we expect to retrain or refresh their training to keep it up to date? And perhaps the harder one is, how do you ensure that the surveillance they carry out without authorisation is actually within the limits permitted by the law?
Good questions. Okay, first off, in relation to the training, we basically do refresh training every other year. And that will then pick up any new authorising officers. Sorry, I'm looking at you and I need to use the microphone. I keep a list of all authorised officers when they leave, so that we catch up with who's replaced. And we are literally at this very moment planning this year's training for all of the enforcement officers, and that will also include the authorising officers, because RIPAs are authorised internally by somebody other than the investigator, so that we have that clarity. And they have to get past my gatekeeping first, and I keep a very good gate. So hopefully that's answered question number 1. In relation to the surveillance, we class it as a non-RIPA surveillance, so it's one that doesn't meet that criminal threshold, doesn't require to be signed off by a magistrate. However, we follow best practice and guidance, which says apply the same procedure. So we have simply the same type of form. We expect the same pre-entry work, so going out doing site visits, making sure that we're not going to be surveilling have too much collateral collection of data. So it's in effect exactly the same process, but the authority stops internally with one of our authorising officers. And that's also overseen by Louise, who's obviously my line manager, but also Phil, who's the senior, what do they call him, responsible officer. So he is the gentleman that they throw the book at if I don't get my job right. So hopefully that's reassured you.
Yeah, can you make sure it's a heavy book?
Yeah, Martin.
I think it's also worth mentioning that South Norfolk Council are very lucky in that we currently have Russ Wilkins working for us. He's ex-Norfolk, and he was the expert on RIPA authorities when he worked in the major crime unit, and he knows the legislation in relation to this inside out and has been using the legislation since it was first introduced. So we're very fortunate that he's one of our key officers who are implementing some of these tactics to try and, catch fly tippers, etc. So I just thought I'd mention that because it is important that he comes with considerable experience of Ripper.
Any further questions? No. In that case, we'll move to the recommendations. The first one is that Cabinet note the contents of the report and provide any comments to the officers, which we've done, for the use of Ripper during 2025. And number 2 is Cabinet to adopt the revised Ripper policy. Everybody happy with that? Excellent, thank you very much. So we'll move on to number 7, the co-investment fund grant application for the Wyndham Public Realm project. Lisa, this is you, I believe.
It is. Thank you, Chair. So the report before us today seeks Cabinet's approval for the allocation of £250,000 from the South Norfolk Co-Investment Fund to support the delivery of the Wyndham Public Realm project. South Norfolk's co-investment fund has been used in other successful projects, the Village Hall in Stoke Holy Cross and the Jubilee Hall in Cringleford, and I'm pleased to now have another project that we are going to use it for. This project represents a significant investment in Wyndham's town centre, aiming to enhance public spaces, improve accessibility and create a more attractive and vibrant environment for residents, businesses and visitors. The proposed improvements have been shaped through extensive public consultation, and they also align with South Norfolk Council's strategic priorities, including economic growth, environmental sustainability and community wellbeing. With Wyndham identified as the largest market town and a key service centre in South Norfolk, these enhancements will help the town adapt to ongoing growth and changing consumer trends while fostering civic pride and economic vitality. The total project cost is £992,425, and this is funded through a combination of contributions from Wyndham Town Council, proceeds from the sale of a council-owned property and consultancy support previously agreed by the council. Approval of this grant will complete the funding package, enabling the transition from design to delivery of 4 major schemes and complementary interventions scheduled for completion by March 27. So, Chairman, I would ask Cabinet to approve the 2 recommendations as the first step to get the funding pot together to be able to proceed with this exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we've got Joel there. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's a really good summary of where we are, but I'm happy to support with any questions if anything comes through.
Okay, thanks. Kim?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I'm a resident of Wyndham and I'm a former Wyndham Town Councillor, and I think the residents of Wyndham will be very pleased to see this council investing in the high street. There's a lot of people out there who are sad to see sort of shops empty, and we don't even have that many in Wyndham that are empty, but people want to be able to walk easily in the town centre, and particularly as a heritage market town, the accessibility of the actual market itself is a real problem, and having two-way traffic between the Mad Hatters and the marketplace on a market day, if you're somebody in a wheelchair or with a walker or with a pram, trying to get through that is a real problem. So I was really pleased to see that the consultation supported that idea at the top of the list of favourites for projects. So really pleased to see this come forward and can't wait to see the shovels in the ground. Thank you.
It's excellent. It's good to see support for our market towns that really are suffering at the moment. So anything we can do to help. Any further questions from Cabinet? No? Any questions over there? Suzanne, do you want to make any comments?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add my comments to Councillor Carsox and say it's good to see this kind of investment in our market town. And even the first thing we did, a small wins, which was the Alley of the Arts, I think it was called, that was well received as well. So that's the first thing that sort of came forward. So there is a lot of support for it. So I hope the Cabinet can agree this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Jim?
I just wanted to say I looked very carefully at the consultation carried out before this went ahead, and I can say I think it's been the best and the most meaningful consultation that I've seen, so I'd like to congratulate all involved in that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so if there's no further comments or questions, we'll move to recommendations, which are on page 42 of your papers. And the first is the Cabinet to approve a £250,000 grant from the Co-Investment Fund to support delivery of a series of public realm schemes and enhancements in Wymondham, subject to grant funding agreement with the Wymondham Town Council. Everybody's happy with that? Yep, thank you very much. And then number 2 is Cabinet to agree to delegate authority to the Director of Place in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and economic growth to agree the final terms and enter into grant funding agreement on behalf of South Norfolk Council. All good? Yep, thank you. Item number 8, local development office order, Berwick Park. And this is you again, Lisa.
It is. Thank you, Chair. So this report seeks Cabinet endorsement to consult on a draft local development order for allocated employment land at Berwick Road in Wymondham. The LDO aims to provide planning certainty for businesses and investors by granting permission for specific types of commercial development within the designated area, subject to conditions. This approach will streamline the planning process, accelerate investment and strengthen Wymondham's role with the advanced manufacturing and engineering cluster. The proposed LDO covers approximately 20 hectares for uses including general industry, storage and distribution, offices, research and development and light industrial activities. Once adopted, the LDA will remain in place for 15 years with anticipated economic benefits of around 329 million GVA over 10 years, contributing to the Greater Norwich local plan target of 32,700 additional jobs by 2038. Cabinet approval will enable a 28-day public consultation engaging key stakeholders and the local community. Feedback will inform any necessary amendments that need to be made before the final LDO is presented back to Cabinet for ratification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And officers, would like to make any comments?
Hi, I'm Deborah. Just one small thing. It's just to confirm that the consultation wouldn't commence until after the pre-consultation, the pre-election period has finished.
Questions from Cabinet? Richard?
Well, probably not a question, more of a comment, I guess. Good to see continuation of our sort of pro-growth ambitions in an area of Wymondham that really has been on the cards for development in this way for some time. So also linking in with early discussions with Hethel, I think it's a demonstration again of this council's ambition to see business growth and development in a proper and structured way.
Any further comments? No? Jim?
I have one, I think, very technical question. I've been comparing this to the LDO for the Food Enterprise Park Phase 2, which I was very, very comfortable with. And I noticed that the noise limits, the Food Enterprise Park includes, they've got the same weighted noise limits, but the Food Enterprise Park includes octave bands. I've got no idea the significance of that, and the octave bands change according to the hours of the day. Can anyone explain to me the significance of excluding that from the Berwick Road proposal?
There you go, nice technical question for you. Glenn?
I didn't realise it was Glenn in front of you.
What a question for a Monday morning, eh? It's not something I know the answer to, I'm afraid, but Councillor Webber, I can perhaps look into that and report back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep.
bring back the question, and we'll make sure that you get the answer. Yep. Carry on, Jim.
The other question is that I think we still haven't worked out precisely the road layout and the access off, I don't know what the road is called then, Berwick Road, at this stage. Does this mean that the layout and particularly the road access would never get the opportunity to go to a development management committee and will be decided purely by officers?
Well, the road layout, in terms of the position of the access, it's likely to be about halfway between the rail crossing and the dumbbell junction with the A11. And we've got some indicative drawings showing that. A fundamental part of local development orders is to streamline the planning process. And so what would happen is that we would receive details of the access, we would consult the highway authority on that, and we would either seek amendments or approve it. The whole purpose of the LDO is to streamline the planning process.
Okay. Any further questions? Oh, hang on. Jim's. Sorry, I thought you said you had two. Carry on, Jim.
Oh, sorry. This may be my fault because I haven't managed to look at all these papers in advance. I just haven't had the opportunity to look at Appendix B, but I see that Appendix B as a design code is there, so I will look at that privately. Thanks.
Suzanne.
Thanks, Chair. I think the concern is just about the consultation. I think that the issue might be for the local community to be properly consulted on this. I know that this area has come up a few times to be developed, and nothing has come of it so far. But I just hope that in future, there will be proper consultation and publicity around this, because it is near to a major housing estate there. Thanks.
If I may comment on that, Chair, what I would say is that we're looking to undertake a wide consultation area, and all those residential properties on the estate to the north will be consulted on that. We've already provisionally identified that. And as part of the information that goes online, we'll have a whole series of documents that residents and other consultees will be able to refer to as part of that. So yeah, we're not looking to shy away or hide anything that we shouldn't be.
So that'll be full consultation. Jim.
There is one point which I'm mentioning partly so Glenn can respond and partly for Suzanne's benefit. I did note that the height of buildings is restricted to a maximum of 16.5 metres, whereas at the Food Enterprise Park they're restricted to 10 metres. And what is the rationale, given the proximity of the town, for permitting such high buildings?
Another technical one for you.
The planner's stock answer is you consider each proposal on its own merits. So just because something happens in one place, it doesn't mean it has to be replicated elsewhere. And I think in any event, the Food Enterprise Park site, the context of that is somewhat different to this site. We have instructed the Landscape Partnership to undertake a landscape and visual impact assessment. And as part of its recommendations, it has suggested a limit to the height of the buildings, and we've taken that on board in the drafting of this document.
Okay. Right, there's no further questions. We'll move to recommendations then, which are on page 72 of your papers. Number one is to approve the draft LDO as attached in Appendix 1 and allow consultation to commence after the pre-election period restrictions are lifted. We all happy with that? Yep, thank you. And number two, to delegate authority to the Director of Place in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and economic growth to make the necessary amendments to the draft LDO before consultation and after formal consultation exercises to finalise the LDO. Are we all happy with that? Yes, excellent. So we'll move on now to item number 9, which is the adoption, I love this one, the adoption of the South Norfolk Landscape Susceptibility in relation to energy generation, storage and transmission supplementary planning document, which you'll find on page 101. I got through it. And it's the Lisa show today, so it's over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. Well done for getting that title out. I'm not going to say it again. I'm just going to refer to it as the Supplementary Planning Document, or SPD. So, so this report presents the final SPD and seeks Cabinet agreement to recommend its formal adoption by Council. So the SPD provides guidance for applicants and decision makers on the suitability of different landscapes within South Norfolk for energy related developments, including solar, PV, battery storage, anaerobic digestion and transmission infrastructure. It aims to ensure that such projects are planned and delivered in a way that minimises adverse impact on the district's landscape character. The SPD has been developed following an 8-week public consultation and incorporates feedback from stakeholders, statutory bodies and the local community. While it will not form part of the statutory development plan, once adopted, it will become a material consideration in planning decisions, supporting the implementation of policies in the Greater Norwich Local Plan and South Norfolk Development Management Policies document. Adoption of this SPD will provide clarity for developers and strengthen the Council's position when responding to energy-related proposals, including nationally significant infrastructure projects, helping to balance the need for renewable energy with the protection of South Norfolk's valued landscapes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we've got Adam and Lola here. Do you want to make some comments?
Yeah, not a huge amount to add. You'll appreciate that Appendix 1 covers in detail all the consultation statement feedback we had. Appendix 2 is the final document, which is dated the 9th of December. Couple of key additions which we picked up before the public consultation but was echoed in the public consultation was to add a assessment for larger scale solar PV schemes of over 50 megawatts, and in a similar vein there's an assessment in there for larger scale battery energy storage systems of over 1 hectare. The point being here that we're seeing a growing volume of these larger scale energy proposals within the district, and as Lisa explained, the thrust of this SPD is to express the special qualities of South Norfolk's landscape, and also it will provide us with a base document that we can use when the council is responding to the Secretary of State on NSIP projects too.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's also worth pointing out that this, the NSIPs and the energy plans for the future in South Norfolk is particularly relevant. My ward, Hempnell Ward, it's a major concern with many residents and the wider area. And I think it's worth mentioning that the Tasway Energy Park has been put on hold now following issues regarding link-ups to the national grid, etc., which is a good move. But it is a very, very topical issue at the moment, and it is causing quite a lot of sort of consternation and worry with members, particularly on my ward, as I've already said. Thank you, Chair.
Kim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Adam and Lisa, for that. I am the local member for Fawnsett Ward, which is very affected by all of these proposals. So if I'm currently looking at the map for the Tasway Energy Park, which Martin mentioned, which is 700 megawatt proposal for solar panels, basically covering the entire area between Ashwellthorpe and Tackleston, all the way around Fawnsett, Fawnsett St Peter, Fawnsett End, going into Long Stratton area, Wacton, and right up to the top. You can't even fit the whole thing on your screen and still read it. Possibly be seen from space, the way it looks on the map. And then if you add to it the East Pye proposals on the other side of Long Stratton, essentially our entire countryside is being proposed to be filled in with energy infrastructure. And then add to that in the back gardens of the people of Wacton and Great Moulton, an absolutely enormous battery energy storage proposal called the Field BESS for short, which that one will be determined by planning at this council. But there has been a 12-month delay to the Tasway proposals, not to East Pye. They're still in the works. My question for Adam is really, does this document help us to potentially stop Tasway entirely? Can we use it to convince the government that this is completely unsuitable, as it is outrageous if you look at the map? Can we use it in our planning meeting when we're discussing the Field BESS? Thank you.
Much like Glenn gave you his stock answer from a DM perspective, I think from a policy perspective, I would say that a supplementary planning document doesn't create new policy. It certainly doesn't buck national policy, but it does provide us with the evidence, the ammunition to make our case more clearly. And when we're dealing with planning applications under the Town and Country Planning Acts, it gives our development management officers the hooks to refer to and to ask the probing questions of the applicants. And in addition, I mean, having this document out there should actually improve the quality of the applications we're dealing with as well.
Okay, any further questions from Cabinet? Well, I'd just like to say that of all the years I've been a councillor, I don't think I've ever seen such a thorough document as that. So well done, the hard work that you put into that. So we'll just take some questions from over there. John?
It's not really a question. While it's commendable to try and negate the effect on the landscapes through hedges and various other mitigating circumstances, the best way to preserve the countryside, especially the East Pye solar one, which is sprawling all through South Norfolk, is to surely be against it in the first place and not let it go ahead.
John, I think you know that both Norfolk County Council and South Norfolk Council have both submitted papers to the government, and we are opposed across the board, particularly to East Pye, which I mentioned earlier is going to really impact Hempnall Ward. So that work is ongoing.
Okay. Yeah, indeed, that is true. I've seen the responses, and when you look at the work BEPS have done, Block East Pye Solar, their response is formidable compared with South Norfolk's response.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay, well in that case we'll move to recommendations. And they are: number 1, the South Norfolk landscape susceptibility in relation to energy generation, storage and transmission supplementary planning document can be formally adopted and to sign off any minor amendments to the SPD prior to the adoption can be delegated to the Assistant Director of Planning in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and economic growth. Are you happy with those? Yep, everybody's happy. Thank you very much. Number 10, that's one for me, which is the safeguarding policy. Good chance. No Kerry today? I'm sure you'll do an excellent job. Okay. Okay, so this is a new safeguarding policy marking our transition from a protocol to a full policy document, and this is in response to the audit recommendations last year, which highlighted the requirement to have a formalised document. This once again documents our commitment to supporting people in the district and keeping them safe from harm, ensuring that what we do is up to date and in line with the legislation and best practice. We're lucky enough to have a new safeguarding lead, Tabitha, with years of experience in the sector, and she will be the driving force in ensuring that this policy is brought to life and that good safeguarding practice is embedded right across the organisation. And I'll hand it over to you now, Nicola, in place of Kerry to elaborate.
Thank you. I think the only thing really to add is that as part of the review, we did a thorough review of all of our safeguarding arrangements. That wasn't to say that they were flawed before, but it's always worthwhile doing a review, and we can always strengthen our safeguarding. Safeguarding is all of our responsibility, so whilst we've got the amazing resource in Tabitha, this policy just sets out what safeguarding is, and we will be producing training and a comms plan to ensure that everyone is aware of our new policy and of our change in procedures. One of the things that we have done as a result of that review is introduce a new strategic board and operational board so that we've got better oversight across the organisation of what's happening in our safeguarding world. Is there any further questions?
Just to point out that also safeguarding is a responsibility of councillors as well as officers and staff across the council, so we need to be up to date on this as much as everybody else right across. Okay, any questions, Richard?
I just wondered if there would be any sort of ongoing training for members on this important topic.
Yes, we will certainly be arranging training. Everyone has the opportunity to do skill gate training, but Tabitha has been arranging in-person training for staff because we all have different learning styles, but it's also important that we get regular refreshers, so we'll make sure that there is a specific member training session by Tabitha as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was an eye-opener to me to realise just how much we have responsibility as councillors, so I would encourage all councillors to come along when you organise that to visit it. Right, any further questions from Cabinet? No. Questions from over there? Jim?
Do we make any use of external agencies to provide whistleblowing support services so that people's first contact when they've got an issue to report is actually outside of the council?
Can I clarify? Sorry, I haven't got a Can I clarify whether you mean the other statutory services that are there to support vulnerable people?
No, I actually mean for our own staff.
I'll take a look at the link into the existing blowing policy and just make sure that that is the procedure is robust.
Yeah, I'm very conscious that there are so many in-employment related issues that people are very reluctant to bring forward.
Yeah.
And not least of that is because it often means airing a, if you like, grievance or an issue about a member of staff.
Yeah. Jim, I actually think the policy that we're discussing is not a staff in way of issues within the organisation. It's external. But Sinead, you'd like to come in, please?
Well, let's
But just to confirm, we do have a whistleblowing policy that was adopted by the council, and we do have key contacts internally, but also have external contacts if anyone wants to raise issues that way.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No, in that case, we'll move to the recommendation, which is on page 509, and that is to recommend that Council adopts this attached safeguarding policy and delegates authority to the Assistant Director, Individual and Families, in consultation with the portfolio holder to make minor operational amendments as required on an ongoing basis. All happy with that? Thank you very much. Yeah, did you want to?
Chair, sorry, yeah. Could I just take you back to the previous report and the second recommendation, which I think might benefit some slight modification, where it says sign off minor applications to the SPD prior to adoption, delete the word can, because we are delegating, you are delegating it. And also at the end of that, delete the words as appropriate, because it is simply a delegation to those individuals.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Are we happy with that?
Thank
you. So that's on item number 9, the regulation. Sorry, no, the the SPD. Okay, we'll move on then. Item number 11, which is the forward plan. Any comments, questions? Are you all happy with what you've got coming up? Yeah, everybody's happy with that. Great, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item number 12, which is the exclusion of press and public. And this is to propose that under section 100A/4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, of part 1, schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. And